Hello, buenas tardes, 𝗟𝗿𝗍 community. My name is 𝗦𝗲𝗍𝗶, and I'm here with the 𝗟𝗿𝗍 as Director of High Impact Practice. This month, we have a special 𝗟R𝗿𝗍𝗆𝗍 showcase spotlighting, and we're also taking this into our Ask an Educator series. Today, I have to shout out Anastasia Delgado for recommending Lit with Peña. Some of y'all might recognize her and know that she's a TikToker, but I will not share anymore because today is all about her. We're elevating her leadership journey as an educator. So Lit with Peña, or Selina. Can I call you Selina?
Yes.
All right, Selina, ¿cómo estás? How are you?
Ando muy bien, acelerada un poquito, pero lista para comenzar.
Nice, nice. Tell us a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where are your people from? How do you engage in your community?
Okay. Well, I am basically where it all just comes down to this is where I am a Latinx queer high school English teacher based out of South Texas, Laredo, Texas. And
not Chicago,
not Chicago, not Chicago, not California, although very appealing both, right? But I am right in the middle, south of both those spectrums in the US, and I come from the bubble of like a frontera, and that's rich with culture and community. And ultimately, I aim to promote safe and brave spaces in order to empower students through authenticity, advocacy, and action.
Nice. I love it. Share a little bit, only because I think there's been a shift in the past, like between safe and brave, right? Yes. Can I ask you to share that difference and how you facilitate that in your space?
I will constantly reiterate it to the point that they already know that they can speak out in my class. And it's ultimately the students need to feel safe. And that's for an educator as well, my teachers as well. They need to feel safe in the environment in order to prosper and to be nurtured and grow, right? And it's once you feel safe and you start developing as a thinker, as a person, that allows them to be brave. It allows them to be brave to speak up for themselves, and this all comes through those three tiers that I promote, which is authenticity, advocacy, and action. It's figuring out who you are, and that's the years in high school, right? Figuring out your identity and establishing that and knowing that you can build upon that, right? And once you start figuring out who you are, that better serves the student or the person, the individual, how they can advocate for themselves and for others, their peers. And once they do that, that's when it becomes into action. These are all just ideas, and it's all manifesting within oneself. And they start realizing their goals, and they start pursuing their goals, or what is it that they want with who they are, what they can do, and how enriching that is to oneself. Yeah,
I like that. Authenticity is one of our values that we hold here at the 𝗟𝗿𝗍, and I like that it's AAA, right? Like authenticity, advocacy, and action. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Problem.
Tell us a little bit about your leadership story. Weave in your upbringing, your journey as a student, as a professional, anything that you feel like is relevant to and give credit to those that also shaped you, right?
Yeah.
Because that's all part of that leadership story.
Yes. Let's see. Being the firstborn Latina, you're kind of born into leadership, or otherwise it's just thrusted on you, right? And I'm sure this sentiment resonates among so many people in our community. Really, it's just making sure that uh, you're just given all these responsibilities at an early age, really. And I can tell you this as the firstborn of three, the oldest. Um, and it's knowing that I was raised to respect my elders, you know, don't talk until you're spoken to, kind of thing. And I was just given so many responsibilities, and I wasn't uh, not so much allowed, but given the space to join the basketball team in middle school, because I had to take care of my sister and my brother, because I had two working parents. Uh, it's because of those responsibilities and expectations that were already set for me, like for who you are. You're the firstborn, you're the third parent. Um, it didn't really give me the space to figure out who I am, who I really was, as I was developing through those, crucial years in secondary, right? Middle school and high school. I only knew what I was expected, or what was expected of me. And that's, um, that was just something that I really took. And yet, looking back, growing up, many decisions and paths were already the expectation. So when someone asks me, what made you want to be a teacher? It's a real shock to them when I say, I never wanted to be a teacher. I never wanted to be a teacher. And this is a story I'll even tell my students. I go, in the third grade, I wanted to be a dentist because the boy I had a crush on wanted to be a dentist. And then looking back at that is going like, who in elementary goes like, really, I want to be someone that works with teeth,
Yeah.
and it's like a doctor, but to be like very specific, like a dentist. I wanted to be a lawyer because I was constantly arguing. The president at one point, I got really interested in engineering, and I um, delve into that. And sure enough, I went to college, being accepted into the business school, considering that I was not good at math whatsoever. I thought it was going to be different for me once, oh, okay, the challenge was getting in. Maybe the new challenge is to actually master math. Um, and don't get me wrong, I really loved my teachers. I was such a teacher's pet. I was shaped by many of my teachers, and I work at the same place that I graduated from. And I experienced actually working with my former teachers. And it was knowing that I still took little pieces of them and how I felt in their classroom, and what I learned in their classroom, and what I learned as because those are different generations, and how I can adapt it within my classroom and within myself as well. But it's because of all the things that I dipped into. I know one thing for sure: I am a very good student. I'm a very good student. I love learning, and it's through all the experiences, all the people that have um, graced my life at one point or another. They shaped me, they molded me, and um, it's they made me a lifelong learner,
Mm,
and that's who and where I am today.
nice. So you're the firstborn, huh?
Oh yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
middle child, so I was the
Oh,
one that followed you around probably. I don't know how many years are between you and your younger, the
um,
second one sibling.
7 years.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
Yes, and my brother and I are 13 years apart.
Hmm.
Yes, and it's with my sister. There was friction because
Hmm.
it's not that I didn't want a sibling or anything like that. It was more, I was already in fifth grade, I believe, when they were born. There was
Mm.
just this huge, um, I guess, delay in which
Hmm.
the preconceived notion I had in having a sister is just, teaching them the ways, like at least 2 to 3 years apart, to where, okay, you expect this in this year, or
Hmm.
talking about crushes or boy bands, really. um but um I I'm very thankful for my siblings. They were a learning experience.
Yeah.
They taught me how to grow, to be more mature, more responsible, um, even when I didn't want to. But now I'm at a place where I, any chance that I get, I enjoy being a kid, just
Yeah.
enjoying those little things in life that maybe I did not have the experience, or the not so much the experience, but the space to, or the time to really enjoy little pieces of my youth, because
Hmm.
I was more of the a caretaker, really.
Yes. Yes. I could definitely resonate with that. Um, I have an older sister,
Hmm.
but we're 4 years apart, and then there's 8 years between my little brother. And so my little brother, it feels like, in a weird way, like he's my son brother. I don't know,
Yes.
like and oh God, I love that boy so much. He's a grown man with kids, but to me, I feel like um, there was a lot of caretaking for sure. And I think that really shapes us if you think about it as, that goes with us into the classroom.
That's
And I agree, like I was a high school teacher for 9 years and middle school before that. And I love the energy of being around kids or high school young adults, like
Yeah.
there's so much fun.
And
Um,
and how is your relationship? Because for some reason, I there's certain male students that I'll have, and I'll look at them, and then once I have a real heart to heart with them, it's just like, and I'll tell them, You remind me so much of my brother." And
yes.
and and I see the great potential in you,
Hmm.
and and it's having those one-on-ones, and it makes the relationship more intimate,
Yes,
and
it does.
establish that kind of connection, to where I see you. It's like,
Hmm.
through the 80 plus students, like, I see you. It may take me a while because there's so many, but
Yes.
I see you. And
Hmm.
I'm very proud of my brother. He is on his way of being a father again.
Oh,
um
good.
yes, so I have my beautiful little niece that I fuss all over, and it's just expecting, like, hey, you better give me a nephew. And he's
Yeah.
like, I'm trying. I'm like, yeah, because that's your part, really. But I'm
Oh,
very
absolutely.
thankful. Yes.
Yes. No, I think if we were in the same room, we'd both be taking out our phones and showing, the proud Tia pictures of our nieces and nephews. Yeah. No, our relationship is good, and my older sister left when I was about 12. And so she left to live in Hawaii, and with her ex at the time, had a child out there. And then so it was just my brother and me, and it felt like, and he was so much younger. What was he, like 2 or 3? And so he knew of her. We showed her pictures, and she'd visit once in a while. But for a long time, it was just us. And then I left him when I was 19. So what was he, 10 or 11? And so then it's so weird. It's like we're 3 in the home, but it was almost like roles switched. And then my brother ended up being raised pretty much after, 10, 11-year-old, like a single, like the only child. So we weren't really always together. It's so weird, but we're super close for sure.
That's beautiful. That's great.
Yes. I love family. Love talking about family. And then of course cousins, right? How many cousins do you have? Let's see. 1,000, 2,000?
Oh Lord. My mother works with me, right? And
Oh, that's cool.
every now and then she'll tell me, "Oh, you have your cousin in your class." And I'm like, "What period? Like who?" And then they'll tell me the name. I'm like, "Oh, so my cousin had a kid?" And
Yeah.
or it's my second cousin, because I don't know if it happens to you. I'm sure it does, right? It's just
Hmm.
a lot of my cousins growing up, I thought they were my tios and tias
Mm.
because of
Yeah, because
that
they're
huge
older.
age gap. Yes.
Yes.
My mother's the youngest of 7.
Oh, wow.
My mother's the youngest of 7, so by the time I came around, I was, of course, the favorite. Don't tell anyone that.
Yes.
But it was seeing all these teenagers, adults, young adults, and I thought they were my aunts and uncles. And
Mhm.
really, I find out, oh, they're my cousins. So their kids were actually my second cousins, and this is how I started learning. Like, how does this diagram work? How do we do this? Is there a
Yes.
hierarchy? You know,
Mhm.
but
This was before we knew about Ancestry
exactly.
and 23andMe. Like, we made our own trees up. We're like, ese es el primo, ese es el hijo del primo segundo, primo hermano. It's like, but
Oh,
I'm Mexican and Puerto Rican, and in Puerto Rico, my mother's cousins are my cousins, and then they number them off too. So my mother's primo hermano is my second cousin,
okay.
and then their kids are my third cousins, something like that. In Mexico, it's different. My dad's cousins are my uncles. I call them tío and tía.
Mhm.
But in Puerto Rico, I'm talking to people that are my parents' age, and I'm calling them tío and tía. They're like, no, 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 yo soy tu prima. I'm like, okay. And and I have to remember these rules. Like,
Yes. That's very strange because I have a prima hermana, and that's
mhm.
because my mom and her mom are like are sisters,
Yes.
and her dad and my dad are brothers.
Wow.
And that's how that came to be. So
Hmm.
growing up, my older cousin, Denise, she um many people would mistake her for my mom's daughter, because the features are similar.
Yeah, I'm
and
sure. Yeah.
and I just be, of course, I'm a Leo. I'm very territorial. And my mother, I'd hear that comment, I'll be like, my mom, not your mom,
Hmm.
my mom.
Hmm.
And um that was something that I found very interesting, I guess. It's not so much strange anymore because it's just like, oh, when I tell someone that, especially from our culture, it's just like, oh yeah, eso pasa, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
awesome. That's new to me. Thank you. But it was very reassuring. But it's
that's
it's
awesome.
it is.
Yes. And then we have great uncles and great great. I don't even know how to say that in Spanish, but let's go on to, I mean, I could talk about family all day. I love
Yeah.
familia. And actually, you know, what's great about this is that I bet it shows up in your classroom, you know, in some way. So I don't know if you're the mama bear of the class or the tia, or it switches around, right? Like
Yeah.
kids used to call me tia, mom, grandma. I even got grandma, you know, like it just depends. What are some hurdles that you've had, that you've experienced in your career, that have made following your dream into teaching a little more difficult? I know you mentioned that you aspired to be all these other things, you know, a dentist, an engineer, lawyer. But, you know, through this journey of discovery, or, you know, knowing that you wanted to be a teacher, what were some of those hurdles or challenges that you've been through?
Several hurdles I had, and it dealt with family. Um, during my years in college, I had a family member pass away every year that I was in college.
Ooh.
And that was very devastating, considering that I was 300 miles away from my family. The one that hurt the most was the passing of my grandmother. She was my protector, my savior. Loved her dearly to this day. It's still, um, it's just, it hurts because she passed away on Mother's Day. And it was the Mexican Mother's Day when she passed. So that's something that I always take with me. And it's I know I get like little condolences here and there whenever I speak about it. It's just I had to our family had to lie to my grandmother because she didn't want me to go out of town for college. She
Oh,
wanted
wow.
me she wanted me to stay here because she's like, tenemos dos colegios aquí, ¿para qué quieres ir para allá? And all this other stuff. And me being the firstborn independent, like, no, I want to paint my own way. Very
Yeah.
dramatic, of course. And for about 2 to 3 months, we lied to her on where I was. And
Wow.
once we broke the news to her, and she was more like, pues ya que, you know, like a little hurt by it. And she and I kept in touch every chance I could, and every chance I went home, see her, talk to her. And um, I ran through, I was struggling a lot through college, and it was because of her apoyándome to not let it go. I was ready to go back, come back home to Laredo and just finish college here. And she was just like, no, tú sígale. And that's really all she had to say. It wasn't some speech or anything. It's these like Spanish words. He said, no, tú sígale. And I was just like, okay. And there I was figuring out a way. And there was a semester where we were a semester away from me graduating before, you know, she passed. So she didn't get to see me graduate. That's something that I take with me. And I know those are things outside of my control, but for some reason it gives me character, it gives me personality, and it gives me the strength to carry through. So whenever I feel like I can't, I just think of her. It's just like I was able to.
Like, tú
And
síguele.
tú sígale. And it was bringing that back here, knowing that I wanted to make a difference in my community, see if I could teach at the same high school that taught me. And I was met with, especially with um, me being queer. It was at one point I was told to dress more feminine,
Mm.
wear makeup. And I'd be glad to wear makeup, honestly, be as gifted as drag queens and everything.
Mhm.
Uh, but my skin's very sensitive, and I've tried all the makeup and everything, and that was my reasoning. But I think they saw it as a little bit as defiance at one point.
Mhm.
Um, but once I established myself, or as I was establishing myself as a new teacher, I was also figuring myself out. I was fresh out of college or sometime after college, trying to be a teacher, trying to figure out who I am as a teacher, and
Mhm.
also figuring myself out as an independent adult, aside from the identity that shaped me through my culture, through my community, through my family.
Mhm.
And it was just seeing um, the queer culture, something that I wasn't really exposed to. And it was just a constant learning experience. And when you're constantly learning about yourself and growing, right, it makes things much more exciting. And it allows me to have these new perspectives, and especially with these ever changing children, right? These kids that walk through
Yes.
my door, and all their different personalities. And it may be selfish to say, but I see a lot of me in them. And it's also a lot of healing in me as I
Mhm.
hear them. And it's one of those things that um I'm met with. And it's those obstacles. Sometimes, I meet a student with severe ADHD, and I have severe ADHD, and I'm like, we're gonna clash. And
Mhm.
we have
Mhm.
clashed. And it's sitting down and talking to them. I'm all like, okay, when you do this, it triggers something in me.
Mhm.
And but is there anything that I can do, right, to help you as well?
Mhm.
And um going back to the question
Mhm.
is, um obstacles and going into leadership, and leadership in the classroom, or even as a department head. um One of the blanket answers that I can say is I teach in Texas. Obstacles are galore, honestly. And if I can ask
Share them.
you, yeah,
Yes.
if I can ask you, it's like, what are your preconceived notions uh, of Texas? I rather ask you
Yeah,
so that
no,
I
I'm
can feed
ready.
off of
Yes.
that.
Well, before I do, let's elevate Tony 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 says, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being here with
Thank
us,
you.
Tony. Tell us who Tony is.
I am
Do
not
you know him?
familiar. Oh, with
Oh, okay.
no.
My bad. All
Yeah.
right. Oh, we have Anastasia Delgado. So much
Hi.
love and power with you. Yes. So,
But
yes, Anastasia is the one that said, you got to get her. Cool.
thank you for recommending me. I'm having
So,
fun.
uh, Anastasia, you might need to help me with this one. What do we think about Texas when you hear the word Texas? Okay. So, I'm from Chicago, born and raised,
Mhm.
Boricua Mexicana. So, when I hear Texas, I hear country music, racism, south of the border. Um, Most recently, right, like this whole like build the wall, etc. It's also like where my father crossed. He crossed into Laredo, and so as far as education, yeah, like book banning. Oh, one more thing. Growing up in Chicago, there was a lot of crime, and I remember a neighbor saying, we need a, oh, I forgot what he called it, but just let everybody own GUNSs. I don't even like to say the word, but yeah,
Yeah.
just everybody needs to own one because in Texas you could have one, and so there's less crime there because people are afraid, or yeah, people are afraid to like bother people or rob people because they might have one. Let's see. Oh, Anastasia says, yes, love your content. I thought she was answering the question. I thought you were helping me out. No. Tony says, I am living in KC from the RGB Disability LGBT advocate. Nice. Welcome, Tony.
Welcome. I love visiting RGB.
Yes. Here's an answer from the community. All right. So when I hear Texas, I think racism, cultura, lack of safety, family, because they live there in fear. Yes. Yes, and all of that. So I'm not sure if anything else comes up, I'll throw it out there. Those are, I mean, it's a variety, right? The border moved. That's, some historical context.
Yeah.
Let's share.
No, one of the things is just like I go, Texas is a state of mind, honestly. It's a place of its own. And I'm not ashamed to say that I am a proud Texan. But like a lot of things that I love or anybody cherishes or loves, sometimes they can disappoint you. Sometimes you're heartbroken by it. And it does, get under my skin, or it hurts my ego, or it does make me feel down when I hear people wanting to help Texas, right? And then others where or on that same token we'll flip it, and then it's just like, oh, what do you expect? It's Texas, right? And it's just like, which one are you for us or against us? And the thing is, it's just many times I posted videos where I'll make commentary or critique something that's going on in Texas, and I will get some of the most amazing comments, very supportive and everything. And most of the time it's just like, hey, just leave Texas, right? Leave Texas. It'll be safer for you over there. And believe me, that idea has crossed my mind more than ever this past school year. And at one point it's like, you know what? I love cold weather. Like Chicago's looking really good. And Chicago's looking really good. And it's just education. I don't know if it's just me, a different generation. Education was never this bad. Or if bad is a good word for it. It's just, I remember I had a very good education, and it allowed me to be where I am right now. And and I want to take this moment to remind people that it's because of Texas also that many laws or many precedents are made. Many precedents are made. So when it comes to laws of the nation or things for education, the textbooks that are from here.
Yeah.
It's just, we need more. We need more of well-to-do, game-changing, life-altering educators. Still in Texas. I don't know. It's like, we don't want you to leave. It's like, this is the same place that bore me. It bore Matthew McConaughey. It bore Kelly Clarkson and my personal favorite and a real role model for me, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. And she was an absolute, it doesn't get a lot of credit, but a trailblazer as a Mexican American educator, female educator. And she was born and raised in Texas for a meantime in San Antonio, but we eventually got her back. And it's just like, there's many things, just like many histories, many stories. There's always going to be different perspectives, different emotions. that go along with it. It's just, what are we doing with all these stories, with what's happening right now?
Mm.
And what are we doing in order to go in the right direction? Because honestly, many things have been swept under the rug. It's like kind of like that. And I tell this to the kids. I don't know why you guys have this most of the time, but you have this no pasa nada attitude. And
Yeah.
and I'm all like, that's fine and dandy, but it's just, to what certain extent is this hurting more than helping people?
Mm.
And there's so much that can be done in Texas. And yes, there are some people, and I want to say maybe in the north part of Texas, that think otherwise. They're always like, no, just stay away from here. We don't want you here. It's like, no, I'm telling you, I want you here. I want you here because I. It's not really ironically. It's just like, if you look at it, there's more of us than there is of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we never moved. We were
Yep.
here.
Yep.
And that's a piece of our history. We were
Yes.
here first. And as I like to tell the students, because they don't know so much about Laredo, I go,
Mhm.
you know the Six Flags, Six Flags Fiesta Texas, and why it's Six Flags? It's because Texas was quote unquote conquered, right?
Mhm.
6 different flags, right? Laredo has 7 flags.
Wow.
And because at one point Laredo did secede from Texas, and it was its own, it developed like around the RGV area, um, its own country, and Laredo was the capital city. And they're like, no, and I'm like, look it up.
I'm
Look it,
learning too.
look it up. Look, it's just like, I
Mhm.
go, where in the world did we have the right or what mentality were we in? What frame of mind were we in? Where we were just like, nah, you know what? We don't want to deal with this like civil war that's going on.
Yeah.
It's like we're just gonna develop our own thing, and it's just like, I want what they're having. Like, what is it that they were thinking? What did they feel in order to start putting these things in motion? It's just like they were making things
Yeah.
happen because they weren't happy or fulfilled in the situation they were in. So it's like you have to create your own path in many ways, and
And it was for a while. It
it
was
was
almost 100. It was almost 100 years.
We were our own country for just a couple of years.
Oh, okay. It
Yeah,
says found. Okay, so Laredo was founded in 755,
yes,
but for a short period. Okay, it was
yes,
1840. Okay, so it's kind of similar, like when Puerto Rico was independent, just for a couple weeks
yes, yes,
from the France, and then the U.S. was like,
yes. So that's why it's just
okay.
like, no, like this is something that's completely doable. And at
Wow.
times we feel, and I think it's the as a culture, or this frame of mind where we feel just oppressed.
Mm,
And the best, one of the ways that we perpetuate that is we do it with each other in our
mm,
community. It's like
mm,
it's oppressing the oppressed. And you'll
mhm,
see it in education, in the hierarchy of the education system, and that's because there's always someone at the top that's dictating and
mm,
saying this is the law, this is the way it has to be. And us as a hardworking survival people, right, we 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 see the rules, what we're expected to follow, especially when we have that built in our community, in our culture, right? And we see this, and it's just like, all we have to do is just follow this. It's the formula. So we can also have that American dream, right?
Mhm.
Also having that American dream, and then it's teaching the Great Gatsby and going like, the American dream is false. There's no such thing. But the thing is, it's just like, what I do want you to learn from everything is that there's nothing wrong in dreaming. But as a people, I don't want them to lose hope.
Yes.
I don't want them to lose hope. I don't, this, especially in a world where they're trying to limit and restrict who they are, what narratives they get to tell or hear or listen to or learn from, right? It's just, don't lose hope. It's going to be defeating at times, but just like them trying to build a border wall, it's just, it hasn't happened, thank God. But it's knowing like, our people are builders. They will
Yes.
find a way over, through, under, right, around. I go, whenever you're
Tunnels, caves. I mean,
exactly.
an immigrant advocate in the area out here years ago, like, I don't know what she's doing now. I think she's working at KU and law, but she goes, they put this was a while ago. This was before Trump administration wanted to build that wall. But she said, if they build that wall, a 10-foot wall, well, they'll show you a 10-foot ladder. They'll find a way. Like, they'll build caves.
It'll become
Yeah, that
murals.
chase. Yeah, innovators. Yep, for
Yes,
sure.
definitely.
It'll become murals for sure. Yeah.
Yes, and it's just it's knowing that every time they try to put a wall, and most of the times we do that ourselves. We do that ourselves. We put these walls up because we've been told no so many times, or eso no se puede, así no son las cosas, anything like that, right? And it's just like, if whatever it is that you decide on is for good, it's for good. It's good for you. It's good for people like you, or even beyond. It's just, what's the harm in that? It's that whole like good trouble, making good trouble, and it's sometimes you need to break down the barriers, right? Just the way that like taking it back. Remember how Encanto was just so like life changing? It's just like, yes, the real generational traumas being represented in each of the characters, right? And it's being able to relate to that. And I go, yes, the country, people as a whole, they've had their own struggles, but gente como nosotros, we have our own, and that's at times from the community, culture, family, expectations, right? And at the end of the day, it's us as well.
Absolutely.
It's us, because we also allow it, and to a certain extent, when do we stop, right? So
And
it's
you brought up this. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, you brought up the Encanto thing. My son asked me recently, like, what was Mirabel's superpower? And I was like, I think she was like the restorative person. Now he's 7, so I had to be like, she's the one that brought the family together. There was a lot of awareness, right? She was a seeker, a finder of answers. And in the end, she brought that family together. And I don't know, what do you think? What was her superpower? Because it wasn't really, I mean, you hear everybody's, like, Luisa, strength, Bruno, visionary, etc. But what was Mirabel's?
I feel that she was the inquisitor, right? Very questioning. It's like why
Hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And uh she's a storyteller, a keeper of
Mm-hmm.
stories. Like she was able
Mm-hmm.
to uh get out of, like, almost like a healer, because her mom was a healer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she her sisters probably spoke to her more than she ever, like, had that conversation ever. And it was just also knowing, like, certain things aren't spoken of. You don't say that you're tired, or you don't say that you can't do it, kind of thing. And she she all she had to do was just listen, even with her preconceived notions on her sister. Which one's the perfect one? What's her name? uh
Not Luisa. Oh gosh.
Isabella.
Isabella. Isabella.
Yes. And it's just able to hear and listen, like, she's assumed to be perfect, but she's also um just like, she wants other things. She wants to be imperfect. She wants
Yeah.
to be able to fail.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
was
Yes.
it was her just listening and hearing their song, right? And their song is their
Mm-hmm.
story. So what is it's the
Yes.
burdens that they carry, and how they don't want to fail the family, because they feel like they're going to fail themselves. And she heard it
Mm-hmm.
from almost everyone, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
abuela too. At the
Uh-huh.
very end, she got to hear her story. And then, because of all of that and everyone coming together, the house is back. And at the very end, the part that always gets me is just like, you know it's just opening. I think the doorknob is almost symbolic to, like, opening a different path, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a safe haven, to where, like, there's certain things that we can talk about now, and
Yes.
have a better understanding, because we spoke to everybody else. And it's, at the end of the day, it's just, you think you can't count on others, but familia is more
Yes.
than just the being born into it. It's also your chosen family. It's also your friends, a community as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
just, you have all these support systems, and it's knowing that you're not indebted to them, but you can be loyal to a certain extent, and also see them for who they are, and learn from them as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing your, that the experience of your hurdles, beginning with family, and your struggle. May she rest in peace with losing your grandmother. I don't know how you kept the truth from her. I don't know, because grandma seemed to know everything.
Oh yeah, she probably knew
But
too. It's just, my mom has this thing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like, it's like, me hago la Mickey, pero no soy, like,
yeah,
she'll say that, and I'd be like,
yeah,
okay. So, because she wants you to, or she wants things to unravel, right?
yeah,
So that she can be right.
yeah.
Um,
She'd be like, "Yo sabía,
yeah,
yeah, ya lo sabía."
ya lo
My
sabía.
wife says, my wife says, "Yo no me mamo el dedo." Her family's from Nicaragua, so I was like,
Oh,
"Wow, okay, all right."
yeah.
Oh, well, what keeps you going, Selena? What keeps you going?
Um, what keeps me going? The friends that I've made, people that I am inspired by constantly,
Mhm,
the community I built in TikTok, and because of them,
mhm,
like, I'll sometimes speak to them. It's just like, hey, I want to know about this in your neck of the woods, either in Chicago or California or Florida.
mhm,
And um my students my
mhm,
students constantly keep me going. um and my absolute obsession and hyper focus in wanting more and wanting to learn more. It's just one of my students had told me, "Ma'am, I want your knowledge," because I was giving him book recommendations, right?
Mhm.
And he goes, "No, but I want your knowledge." And I go, "This is a lifetime thing. I am still learning." And my favorite phrase is, or my favorite answer is just like, "I know a lot, but there's so
Yeah.
much I don't know. I don't know everything, but I know a lot." And it's just giving me time to like let me dive into this world, right? But I think that's the great vocation of being a teacher for me. It's just I get to learn so much about everything. It's like
Mhm. Mhm.
a teacher of all the things kind of thing. And I I absolutely enjoy it. I enjoy it, and I go, "Did you know?" And have these like useless knowledge, and I go, "But I can always have it work for me for some reason." I go, "Did you know that dolphins can fall asleep? Is They turn off half their brain."
Oh my.
So and then they'll just look at me, and sometimes I will throw like odd, facts out there, because whatever follows it, I want them to learn. So I want them to like link it to
Yeah.
that obscure fact. And it's like, nada que ver
Mhm.
con esto, but like, let me tell you this, hyperbole or anything like that.
Yeah.
And or I can just use it as a metaphor, a simile, where I'd be like, yeah, so be like the dolphin.
Yeah.
Instead of putting your head down and falling asleep completely, at least turn off half your brain, right? And have the other
Oh.
half pay attention to me, and then switch it, because they can do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then for another
Oh.
obscure fact, it's just like, did you
Mhm.
know like the sperm whale has a heart as big as a laundry machine?
So how do you apply that?
It's all like,
Oh.
that's how big of a heart I have in giving you second chances, kids. All right? It's as big as that whale.
Oh. I thought you were
And
gonna say something like, "You need to wash your heart. Wash it."
wash it. Ah, Lord. Or, like, hey, sometimes you do need to wash your clothes, or say,
Yeah.
like, just because you got out of the gym doesn't mean that you don't take a shower. Take a shower. You're a growing kid with hormones, please.
Yes, absolutely.
Uh,
Oh my gosh. I
but
love it.
it's ultimately all these experiences, even being on this platform with you.
Mhm.
It's like I am taking away so much, and it's just
Mhm.
another experience that I get to take with me. And my students are just like, kind of thing. It's like no big deal, but I'm like, it's a big deal to me, okay? But
Yes, absolutely. Oh man, that's awesome. This next question's I'm gonna read it just because it is kind of wordy, but I think it's important to share every part of it because at the LEC, our mission is to increase the representation of Latinx educators, K through 12. And then Anastasia says our experiences are our best tools. Absolutely, yes. I know. Right now, my cheeks are hurting from the giggles and laughing, and with Anastasia too, we were having too much fun last time. The Latinx educators are the fastest growing demographic of educators in the country.
yes.
Unfortunately, they are also some of the quickest to leave, with 3 years being the average amount of time spent in the classroom compared to the national average of 5 years. Why do you think this is? And what advice would you give to Latinx educators listening right now that are struggling?
I feel the reason Latinx educators are leaving, and like below the minimum, right? Below the average. Um they know their worth. They know their worth,
Mm.
and that is an amazing thing. Yeah, and um, I'm a little late in the game about knowing my worth, and uh, but it's just it's they know their worth now. I'm also a teacher mentor. I had
Mm.
two mentees this past school year, and one I had where they wanted many procedures and structures, or so what is the next step, and I go, um most of this is improv. Most of this is improv.
Yes. Yes.
And the experiences, I wish, it's because they come from a law enforcement, right, field. So like,
Mm.
I'm just like, I understand, and believe me, with my ADHD brain, especially coming back to um the school year in person, is I wanted structure. What are we supposed to do when this happens, and what are the procedures, so that I can know it's a checklist. I did everything that
Mhm.
I was supposed to do. And I tell them that, just like the preparation programs, or those tests that you study for, or even student teaching, nothing will prepare you for the real life uh, experience in the classroom.
Mhm.
And it's knowing that it takes a teacher to develop some sort of, you know uh firmness, like grounding, where they're at in the classroom, what their role is, who they are. The same way when I first started out, I was figuring myself out as a teacher and as an individual. And it's knowing that I what worked last year might not work this year. And it's also
Right.
and
Or
it's
day to day. Like what
ex
works in the morning doesn't work after lunch. Like
yes. And sometimes I'll
Mhm.
get it from the kids. Ma'am, I heard you did this with the afternoon
Yeah.
kids, and you didn't do that with us in first period. And I'm like,
Mm.
it's because it's different. And then I'll hear it
Yeah.
the different way, because uh the kids first thing in the morning, right? I need to do something that'll get their attention, because they're barely coming to school. They're not as awake as they should.
Mhm.
And sometimes I'll do something else. And it's just, um to say that lessons should be scripted, to a certain
Mm.
extent they should be bulleted, right?
Yes.
But
Speak on it.
scripted,
Speak on it.
like, believe me, my students, as much as it's like, today we will, and then the I
Mhm.
will, the objective and the closing product, that's good for me. Like, I
Mhm.
eventually want to get to the closing product, but knowing me,
Yeah.
we take so many side quests. It's not like, believe, and then
Mm.
I'll look at them and I'll go, believe me, we'll get back to the point. It'll circle back. It always does, like
Yes.
circle of life, right? It always
Yes.
goes back to the point. And I go, that objective, at yes, to appease the administration, if that's what they think. But it's also knowing, like,
Mhm.
the literacy program for the nation that was tried and true, right, has been disproven.
Mm.
And how it doesn't help um our demographic, our
Yep.
black and brown kids, right?
Mhm.
They're not experiencing that. And I go, of course. It's like, I heavily fought for, especially with like ADHD, and like me with ADHD and
Mhm.
everything. It's just like, I go, when did we stop doing rote memorization? It's just like, things need to be seen repeatedly in order to have, um, at least context, right? And it's
Mhm.
having that context. It's okay. What does it mean? Use it in a sentence. We start
Mhm.
applying it. And then it's our job as teachers, because we're the facilitators. We start making those meaningful connections to those words,
Mhm.
right? And this is where we bring in our real life experiences. This is where I go, it's not like, okay, ustedes, like, si están en el antro y están perreando, right, with to Bad Bunny or everything like that, you
Yeah.
are essentially, perreando to poetry. All right,
Hmm.
because it is it echoes a feeling. And then I'll tell them, like, when you're happy, do you listen to sad music? And they'll go, no. I'm like, what do you listen to? And they'll tell me. And it's like, oh, when you're sad. And believe me, you just got out of a relationship. Believe me, I know. I've been there. uh I had my little sad playlist already going, so I
Yeah.
can really feel, because it's cathartic. It's
Yeah.
cathartic, it's validating, and it's knowing that
Hmm.
other people in this world connect to that
Yes.
music, to that
Hmm.
poetry set to rhythm. And then the boys will look at me, right? And I'll go, okay, and you, like, when you go work out, what do you
Hmm.
pump to? And they're like, well, I'll listen to like some hardcore rap or
Yeah.
some heavy metal. And I'm like, I'm more of an AC/DC person, like,
Hmm.
give me that 80s rock, and I'll start pumping iron with you. And they're like, and then
Yeah.
they'll start asking me how much I bench. I'm like, you don't even want to go there.
Yeah.
And it's been a while. and
Yeah.
uh and it's just like, how can I make these meaningful? So whenever we
Yeah.
tackle onto something that's beyond, or like the language of Shakespeare, is just, or Beowulf, anything like that, it's just like, let me bring it down for
Hmm.
you. Let me give you your cultural context, because at the end of the day, these are still themes that even
Yep.
from Shakespeare times, right? Like, these are still universal themes, and you see them in all the shows, like in your Stranger Things. You see them in the music that you listen to, the DC movies, the Marvel. These are all
Hmm.
stories. They just are written differently. And
Hmm.
it's also
Yes.
telling them that there's nothing original in this world. Nothing is original. Don't think you're a trailblazer or anything like that, because
Right.
someone has already thought of it before. It's your job, if going by evolution, right? It's your job, is how are you gonna make this more adaptable and better, uh,
Mhm.
for you and the people
Mhm.
after you.
Well, and you add music to poetry.
Mhm.
I mean, music is, it's like, it's our vibration, our heartbeats. It has a rhythm, right?
Yeah,
And so it's like almost in our DNA. And then on top of that, storytelling for Black and Brown folks, it's in our nature for
it is.
sure.
It is. It is.
Well,
I'll tell them that,
it's
especially when it comes to like La Llorona, and I'm like, don't tell me you can't remember of a time you read or were told a story, because everyone knows La Llorona, and if you don't, I'm gonna tell you right now.
yeah.
And
Oh, El Cucuy.
El
La
Cucuy,
Llorona's a good one though, but yes, that right there can get a lot of kids engaged for sure. And then the ones that don't know, they're like, "Well, what is it? I hear about it." And it's like, "Oh, if you don't eat your vegetables, she comes after you." And that's all some kids will be like, "I don't know the real story." And so that curiosity goes up.
yeah,
But
and
you know
and
what?
no,
Sorry.
and I was gonna say, like, and to this day, like, I still have my mom que me barre con un huevo, right? Whenever I
Yeah.
feel very down, alguien me hizo ojo. Do I understand the complexities of it? No. But does it feel so inviting? Does it feel safe? Does it feel like I'm being protected? And it's something that my partner has expressed before, and they feel like this with their parent. Is this like,
Mhm.
I may not be religious, uh, but they have faith in their mother, and
Yes.
the power of their faith,
Yes,
of
those
their mother.
practices. Yes, those practices. There's certain things that I still do that, yeah, I'm not a practicer of religion per se, but yeah, me voy a persinar.
Yes.
I'm gonna wear, like, I don't have it on today, but the red bracelet with the black hand that protects
Yes.
you. We had that on our son for a long time until it just fell apart, and so there's certain things that for sure those practices continue on. Well, if you had one thing that you wanted all your students, or even some of the mentees that you've, have shaped and molded, one thing that you want them to walk away from your class, your school, your district, what would that be?
Failure is to be expected. Believe me, I failed so many times. I have made so many mistakes and I have failed. And the thing is, it's so ingrained in me of how critical and how tough I am on myself. And especially growing up Latina, right? And even being labeled as GT. I'm a GT student. I shouldn't be failing, right? And I tell them perfection is unattainable. It's an illusion. It's an illusion to keep those oppressed, because you're striving for something that's unrealistic. It's just like, how do we take this idea that's being all like shined on, like all the heavenly rays and everything? How do we take that idea and make it more realistic? And it's just showing them like, the pursuit of excellence or perfection. When we fail, we think that's it. That's it. My dreams, my hopes are dead or whatever. They can get very grim, and it's going on. It's like failure allows us to see things from a new perspective. It's just seeing like, okay, if it didn't work this way, we have to look at it at a different angle, or maybe upside down, or however you want to figure things out, right? And these moments helps us find new ways in order to adapt and grow. It's just like, as much as, or in a way, like we may have to work a little harder, but those are accomplishments that are earned and never given. And that's the one thing, especially during the pandemic while I was remote teaching, I think I drilled it into them. It's just like, in a world that's trying to take away so much from you, so many of your stories, your lived experiences, because they want you to fall in line into one narrative, one monolith. And it's knowing that there's not one monolith. It's just it's knowing that you can be similar yet different, because the world is complex. People are complex. There's no inherently good and there's no inherently bad. It's like people are complex. We live in that gray area. It's just like, and it really depends on the situation, the whole ethics of it all. It's just like, what was the best decision that can be made in that situation for you or for others? And when we strive, and I make my kids earn for, man, can I have a couple of points to just get an A? And I was like, you have to earn it. I am not going to give anything to you unless you earn it, because as much as you might, walk away from me, say things under your breath or whatever, it's just like, at the end of the day, when you hold that diploma, there's a more sense of accomplishment, because you worked hard. These are little successes that turn into a huge success, a milestone. And it's just, you were able to do that regardless of your demographic, regardless of how you of your home environment, regardless of you having to take care of your siblings or work a part-time job at the age of 15, while being a part of athletics or a club, or trying to get straight A's, or trying to just make it through the day. Just trying to make it through the day. And when you receive that little diploma, right, it's just something that you can just put on your wall and look at it from time to time, and it's like, I did that. I did that. I had support along the way, as everyone does when they grow. It's just at the end of the day, that's all you. Those are your accomplishments you took. And in whatever phase that they go into in their next part of their life, right? That sets a precedent. That sets a precedent for them to continue. And even when they fail, it's just like, I also failed at doing this. I wasn't able to get the C that I wanted or the B, but I tried harder, or I just did something else differently. And it's knowing that you don't have to beat your head and just drill it into, if it's not working, it's not working. It's like, in what way can you make it work for you? So it's just these things that I constantly try to tell them, and especially my students, because a lot of them, they bear the weight of the family, right?
Yes.
And I tell them, enjoy being a kid.
Yes.
And I go, you didn't hear it from me.
Yeah.
But I will tell them, if you're gonna do something dumb, be smart about it.
I like that. You have a lot of cool sayings. Yeah.
They're gonna make mistakes, and the thing is, it's just like, enjoy those mistakes, and they're gonna make a cool story later.
Yes.
Just
and
make
a lesson.
And a lesson.
And a learning. Yes. Because I mean, through failure, I gotta admit, like, that failure is to be expected. That's so liberating. I bet you, like, you have such liberatory practices without, I don't know if you realize it, but perfection is unattainable. I think that automatically, like, lowers what I would call, like, that affective filter, that wall that kids put up in a learning environment, and circling back, like, when you talk about building that safe space, that brave space, that I could definitely hear it with our time together, that you show up authentically, and I'm sure students learn to advocate for themselves and put things into action, which are your triple A's. Do you call it a triple A?
I should, though. I should.
Yeah.
Is that like my triple A?
You got your triple A card.
I'm almost getting there. Yeah.
No, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing space here with us and giving us the opportunity to elevate your story, celebrate you, and have others, listen to your journey. I'm sure many listeners resonated. Thanks again, Anastasia, for recommending. I'm going to go ahead and close us out. 𝗖𝗍𝗄 community, thank you for tuning in. Remember, June 23rd, we have the Orgullo Latinx virtual story circle. Aniceto Herrera, who's kind of peeking over my shoulder over here, we'll be interviewing him live here on Ask an Educator and all our platforms. Have a good night, everyone. And Selina, I'll see you in the studio in just a moment.
Thank you.
Good night. Buenas noches, everyone.